Captain, there's something heading our way extremely fast. It's coming straight at us. I've never seen anything like it before.
Action. Racing. Fun. Adventure. Nintendo 64, the fastest, most powerful games console on Earth, now at $99.99.
As a gamer who grew up in the 90s, I was lucky enough to grow up in one of the greatest decades for video games. Now, a lot of people will argue that the 80s or the noughties were better decades for gaming, even the 70s, but the 90s was so eventful. It heralded the age of 3D gaming, not to mention the games themselves. It was the last time Sega released a good console and the decade that Sony entered the gaming landscape. But beyond that, it was also the last true decade where one could game with convenience, in the console space anyway. PC gaming has and forever will be a headache. But back in those days, I could sit down with my PlayStation or N64, put in my game of choice and just play, there and then. The first half of the noughties were mercifully the same. There was no such thing as software updates on the PlayStation 2, games weren't patched every few weeks, it was an uncomplicated way to play games. Yet today, it seems consoles have lost sight of the purpose of their conception. Consoles are always designed with ease of use in mind. The concept of having something you could plug into the back of your TV and enjoy wasn't a foreign concept when home video games consoles were devised. VCRs have been doing that for years. The Nintendos and the Ataris of the world knew that in order to be successful in a consumer's home, they had to be able to offer the same ease of use. It was something the creators of game consoles bared in mind right up until the dawn of multiplayer and internet-enabled machines. Fast forward to the end of the Xbox 360 and PlayStation 3 lifecycle, and you'd be hard-pressed to find a game that didn't need an update at some point during its lifecycle. PlayStation 4 and Xbox One are even worse in that regard, each system needing regular updates in order to function properly online and sometimes offline. Most new games need day one patches, week one patches, etc., a process that can become extremely inconvenient to a lot of players. For example, I tried to have a quick round or two with my daughter on Plants v Zombies Garden Warfare 2. We had a spare half an hour to kill and decided to bond over some zombie splattering. Instead of Agent Corn running riot in the Gardens of Warfare, that half an hour was spent waiting for a 9GB update to be installed on the system. Now, there's nothing wrong with a developer realizing that an aspect of their game has room for improvement, but if implementing that improvement gets in the way of the consumer's enjoyment of the game, then something's wrong. In some cases, we know days or even weeks ahead of a game's release wherein a developer states that they're working on a day one patch for a game that isn't even released yet. My basic point is this: if games aren't finished or are broken, don't release them. I long for the good old days when the likes of Nintendo would spend years on a game only for it to release in tip-top condition. In fairness, Nintendo in particular still do this, but sadly it's not true for the majority. We'll still get the odd game like Horizon Zero Dawn that just works out of the box, but those occasions are few and far between. In the 90s, a broken game stayed a broken game. It would review badly and people wouldn't buy it. Sometimes there'd even be cases where the game became ironically compelling based on the hilarity of the brokenness. It may seem harsh to suggest we go back to these days. After all, creators should have the freedom to amend their expressions, but it's becoming a hard-to-stomach reality of today's gaming landscape. It can become expensive too. External hard drives are becoming a near necessity for console gamers, unless you want the constant rigmarole that comes with deciding which game to delete to make space for this time. It therefore seems like the lines between console gaming and PC gaming are becoming more skewed. Certain practices have their validity and benefits. Online gaming is a revolution to console gaming, and online stores have added convenience to some extent. But the patches, the updates, the pending installs makes it hard for old school gamers like myself to stay attached to the thing that we love. Online stores in particular are somewhat troublesome. Even if you are armed with a fast broadband connection, it still takes multiple hours to get into the game. With 2 kids, I have more than enough things that with the best intentions get in the way of my gaming. My only fears are that Microsoft, Steam and PlayStation may not be aware of the opinions some gamers may have. I fear that more and more people will jump out of the console market and into the more easily accessible mobile market due to the direction that consoles are taking. And nobody wants that, surely.